Good morning. And happy birthday, Branches. Yeah, we're stoked about it. It's cool to look at this video, but also know that captures like just such a small part of all the things that we've done together and just the little bit of our story, and just to get us excited for the things to come, as Mavola was just praying, just thinking about all the things that we lay at God's feet and just entrust to Him. And that's really what we've been trying to do for these past 2 years is, honestly, I can speak for myself, just entrusting whatever this thing could be to God. And it's been so much more than I could have ever asked or imagined. And I'm so grateful for each one of you for being a part of it and for walking alongside us in it. It's just been so awesome these past couple of years. If this is your first time here or one of your first times here, I want to welcome you. This is a great day to be here to kind of hear about what we're all about. And also would love if you would check in and let us know that you're here today so we can welcome you to this community and just thank you for being here and get you connected to all the things that are happening in the life of our community. I just want to, again, thank you for being here today on this day of celebration and ask that you would stick around. There's going to be cake. There's going to be a lot of great conversation connection. There's stickers out there. You can go, as we say, make your mark and leave your thumbprint in the Branches logo. We can hang it up in our Branches space and just remember this time together as we celebrate our second birthday. I've been thinking, just the past week or two, just about the past 2 years and all the things that have happened to me personally in my own life, and then in the life of the church and the life of our community. And there's really too many things I could highlight. But I did think about, how we came up with our core values. I talked to a few mentors and they all had kind of contradictory advice about how to lead a thing like this. One of them was like, how do I name the thing? And one guy was like, very democratic, like you got to get everybody together and you should all take a vote. And I had another pastor friend said, don't do that, just pick something. That's what I did. And so that was nice. There were a few other options. I was like, man, if I give this to a vote, it's going to be like maybe something I'm not as thrilled about anyway. So we did that. And then I had a group of leaders together. We were kind of dreaming about what this thing could be. And so we did this kind of word cloud exercise. We kind of wrote down every sort of value we hoped this new community would have. And we kind of emphasized some, and we saw how some could connect together and maybe some common threads, or, what this one has to do with the other, or why this thing is important with this one, or maybe why this one is a result of this one. And we kind of condensed them down into 3 core values: belonging, daring, and abiding. And inevitably, and as recently as today, and frequently over the past 2 years, as I share those values and talk about what it means to belong and to dare and to abide, someone always says, the dude abides. And I remember in sharing that first core value, or the core values for the first time, rather, and I said abide, that came to mind for me, and then I talked about it in my first sermon. I said, this dude abides. I thought that was so clever. Meaning, like, I care about my spiritual life. And that's what we've meant from the beginning, to talk about being abiding people. I remember one of those early conversations with our leaders, and our leaders saying, like, we don't want to be shallow, superficial people. We don't want this to be a shallow, superficial, gimmicky community. We want to go deep. We want to think deeply. We want to love deeply. We want to be in our spiritual lives in a deep way. We want to grow. We want to be challenged. We want to be pushed. We kind of sum that all up in the word abide from John 15, we're going to read from in a little bit. But again, commonly, more often probably than people know it from Jesus, they know it from Jeff Bridges' character, Jeff Lebowski, the dude abides from The Big Lebowski. And there's there's 2 scenes actually, of the Big Lebowski's character, Jeff Bridges, the Big Lebowski, the dude, talking with Sam Elliott. Sam Elliott's a character actor. He's in a lot of stuff. And so at the beginning of the movie and then at the end, kind of bookending this chaotic story, they actually have to watch a couple of times to totally grasp like what actually happened and why is it so funny. And at the end of the movie, Sam Elliott's sitting at the bar in the bowling alley, and Jeff Bridges comes up and orders a couple of beers, and they recognize each other and like, oh, hey, how's it going? And Sam Elliott says, hi, I'm sorry to hear about Donnie and all this stuff. And, the dude says, there's strikes and gutters and highs and lows, but, and kind of trails off. And Sam Elliott says, well, take it easy, dude. And then the dude says, the dude abides. And Sam Elliott then turns and faces the camera, kind of breaks the fourth wall and speaks directly to the audience. And I've messed with my Sam Elliott impression. I don't know if I can do it. He looks into the camera and he's like, it's nice to know he's out there, he's out there taking it easy for all us sinners. And then he says, the dude abides. And really, honestly, the way people most think about the word abide is either to mean to get along, to like follow the rules, like you abide by something. But in this movie, and I think really the way most people talk about it is like this steadiness, this security, knowing that somebody is just the way they are and they're going to be who they're going to be. And they're not really a bad person and they're not really a good person, but they're just kind of this steady presence in your life. They abide. They just kind of roll with it. They're kind of a slacker like the dude. They're just chill and they just kind of want to live their lives. When they get interrupted as the plot of the movie goes, they're like, hey, I'm just trying to abide. I don't care about this. Well, I care about my rug, but I don't care about this other Rich Lebowski, and I don't care about these criminals. I don't care about all this stuff. I just want to live my life. I just want to abide. Is a steady presence, even though he's not maybe the best presence in the world. And maybe you know people like this. In fact, I'm probably assured that you do know someone like this. I think about a guy I grew up with named Daniel, who I have not talked to Daniel in a long, long time. Actually, I was talking to some friends about him just recently, and I kind of had the same feeling Sam Elliott has about the dude. Like, it's nice to know he's just out there doing his thing, I'd hear something about him that he was like camping in a tent in the park in our small town in Arkansas, and I'm like, that's Daniel, Daniel abides. He's just, doing his thing, and it's nice to know in some way that he's out there doing his thing, that he's consistent. And maybe that's not the way you think about abide, and it's certainly not the way that Jesus thinks about abide, the steady presence. Maybe that you can think of that person now, but it's certainly a way that we can at least look at it 2 years into this thing about how we as a people can abide together. And we're in John 15, the passage from which our community takes its name, the first 8 verses. And it's John 15, 1-8, and it says this: I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He removes every branch in me that bears no fruit. Every branch that bears fruit, he prunes to make it bear more fruit. You've already been cleansed by the word that I've spoken to you. Abide in me as I abide in you, just as the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine. Neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who abide in me and I in them bear much fruit, because apart from me, you can do nothing. Whoever does not abide in me is thrown away like a branch and withers. Such branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask for whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. My Father is glorified by this, that you bear much fruit and become my disciples. Friends, this is the word of God for us, the people of God. Thanks be to God. Would you pray with me? God, in worship today, in your word, in our conversations, in our prayers, in our celebration, would you teach us to abide in you? Teach us to stick to you, to remain with you, to follow you, to center you in our lives, in our practice, in our families, in our work, in our world. Will you remind us that you are our steady presence, you are our anchor, you are our center, and that if we feel resistance, it's only because we've drifted, not because you have. We ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen. This is near Jesus' kind of farewell discourse to his disciples. He's gathered his core group of people, his center group of people, his core leaders, the people that he's kind of entrusting his mission and his work and his word to say, when I'm gone, after all this is over, these things that I've kind of predicted to you, that I'm going to die, and I'm going to raise from the dead, and then I'm going to ascend into heaven, all of this is going to belong to you, and here's how you're going to conduct yourselves in the world. And for 2,000 years, kind of in continuation, handed down, inherited, passed down over and over and over again, these are some of the central words that disciples of Jesus have held on to say, he's not around in the flesh anymore. Here's how we conduct ourselves, and here's the center point of it. The image. I'm the vine, Jesus says. You are the branches. And God, the Father, is the one growing this whole plant situation. You're an extension of me. You're going to bear fruit because you're sourcing your life from me. You're going to produce these things that I've produced in the world, love, compassion, and justice, and mercy, and transformation, and healing, and love. You're going to produce all of those things because you're attached to me. And the word that he uses is abide, minnow, kind of transliterated M-E-N-O, minnow. And it's used other places in the New Testament to mean to remain, to stick around. Jesus asked his disciples to stay around, to stay physically. It can mean to stick or to be in close proximity to. I've shared this before. My friend Chad is a pastor in Louisiana. And he says, you should follow Jesus so close that you step on the back of his flip-flops. I like that analogy. Like we're kind of annoying Jesus, we're so close. Like we should annoy Jesus, we're so close behind him. Minnow has that same sort of explanatory weight and power. You want to be so close to Jesus that people wouldn't recognize you any other way. Minnow means to be close to. The puzzle, though, is, again, Jesus has died and resurrected, and this happened 2,000 years ago in a land that's so far away, and how do we stick to him now? Jesus offers in John 15 his steady presence to his disciples in his physical absence. And if what he promises the disciples is true, it's true for us. And it's not just true for us individually in our own spiritual lives. It's true for us in small groups. It's true for us in our families. It's true for us in churches, and not just churches, but the capital C church all over the world, that we can still abide in Jesus even with his physical absence. We can still stick to him. We can still be with him. We can still be around him. And Jesus promises that it's not just because he wants you to remain with him. He doesn't want you just to abide just for the sake of abiding, but if you abide in me, he says, you will bear much fruit. And when you bear much fruit, people will know that you're my disciples. Here's the type of fruit the New Testament describes of people who abide in Jesus: love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And this is not an exhaustive list, but a pretty good picture of the type of fruit that Jesus followers have been seeking to cultivate for a long time, not manufacture or crank out over a one night or a 24-hour period, but to spend a lifetime tilling and paying attention to and seasonally tending to, and in partnership and in different seasons of your life giving different nutrients to bearing that fruit. It changes us. His steady presence isn't just there for us to stick to and then stay there, but as Eugene Peterson says, Jesus doesn't get us to where we want to go, but where Jesus wants to go. That when we abide, when we minnow, when we stick, when we rely on Jesus' steady presence in our life, we go somewhere and we grow some things. I heard John Mark Comer ask this question of his church. He said, if someone were to ask you about your family and you started to say, well, on Mondays we wake up at 7 and we have breakfast and my wife goes to work and I stay and I get our child ready, and then I go to work from 9 till about 5, and then I come home, and then we have dinner, and we go to bed around 9. That person would think you were insane. Because they asked you about your family, but you start to tell them about your schedule. And he says, too often, maybe most often, that's what people say when they ask you about your church. Well, we meet at 11, and there's a little bit of music at the beginning, and then there's a prayer, and then a guy does like a TED Talk with Jesus sprinkled in or something. And then we have communion, and what's communion? Oh, it's this thing, and then we sing a little more, and then it ends sometimes at noon, sometimes at 12:10 if the guy with the TED Talk talks too long, But that's how we talk about our churches. That's how we talk about our communities. When Jesus talks about the community he's trying to cultivate, the sort of people he's trying to grow, the sort of fruit he's trying to give to these people, it's qualitative. It's not time scheduled. It's not around programming even. It's not about what happens at the beginning and what happens at the end. It's qualitatively described. And I think that's the challenge for me, looking back over 2 years and then looking ahead to where Branches could be, is I hope and I pray and I want to work for us together with deep effort and attention and care and love to cultivate a place where we don't just think that we're loving and kind and gentle and self-controlled people, but that other people who aren't here yet think that. That when they think about Branches, they don't think like, oh yeah, that's that place that meets at 11 behind St. Luke's. But they think, oh, those are those people that are so stuck to Jesus that they're obnoxiously loving and giving. They're caring and sacrificial. They are changed people. There's people I know that have gone to that place, and when they've come out, they're totally different because they've committed themselves to anchoring their life and centering their life around the principles and the teaching and the life of Jesus. Just a side note, I say this out of my deep need for it, not out of my expertise in it at all. But to say, if Branch is going to be anything, I'd love for us to be the church that helps people and is a place of belonging and is a place that cares about the right justice issues and has the right conversations and has the right programming and is really flashy and has all the cool gimmicks and all the new stuff and is on the cutting edge of everything. I would love all of that. But it would mean nothing if we weren't abiding in and sticking ourselves to Jesus. The good news is what Jesus says is if you abide in me, you'll bear fruit. You could pay attention to these 100 different things and never abide in me, and you wouldn't be anywhere. But if you abide in me, you may get all of those things too. Hear me really clearly. This isn't like health, wealth, prosperity nonsense. This is Jesus' birth in places that abide in him, the fruit that he wants to bear, which is qualitative, again, character-driven, life-transforming, people-centered, because God loves people. We abide in Jesus, not because it's a fun project or because we have time to, or maybe we could fit it into our margin, but because by it, everything else comes. Branches can be all of those things. I, like Sam Elliott, want to hear someone say or hear of someone saying, you know, I don't go there. I don't show up to church on Sunday. It's not really my thing. But it's nice to know that they're out there abiding, taking it easy for all of us sinners, you know. It's nice to know that there's this place where maybe if one day I cared, I could belong. Or maybe if one day I cared, I could do something for our city. Or maybe one day if I wanted to be a part of it, I could deepen my spiritual life and walk alongside some other people who care about that same thing. How do we do it? This is like the practical nitty-gritty part of it. Abiding isn't just like intellectually assenting like, okay, I abide in Jesus now. Check. But it's day in, day out commitment to setting aside time for quiet and solitude and silence and prayer, of reading scripture, not just alone, but with other people, of giving yourself in service and seeking the needs of others before your own, of giving yourself away in that service, giving your time and your energy so that other people are lifted up and other people have an opportunity and other people are shown kindness and compassion. It's being in a small group with other people, a very small group or a little bit bigger small group where you can share the things that you're struggling with. You can learn something new about the Bible. You can come on Tuesday morning to Manly Men or Monday morning to Abide and grow with other people and ask questions and make connections and build friendships and community centered on, Carrie stole it for the women's ministry. It's centered on Abide, you know? That's what it's about. But ideally, all of the groups, all of the opportunities, all the discipleship we do begins and ends with our abiding in, our sticking to the steady presence of Jesus. When I feel unmoored, when I feel like I'm not steady, when I feel wobbly on my feet, when I feel unsure, when I feel like I'm acting in ways that I don't typically act or thinking in ways that I don't typically think or feeling in ways that I don't typically feel, it's always this funny feeling when okay, maybe I should crack open the Bible. Or maybe I should take some time to pray. Or maybe I should connect with that friend who I can trust and I can share my struggles. And it doesn't happen overnight. And again, it's not a silver bullet, but it is amazing to be like, oh yeah, I forgot that I could abide in Jesus. And that's the encouragement I want to give you in a group, as an individual, as a family. And then for Branches, that's our North Star. That's our center point. That's our heartbeat, is to stick to Jesus, nothing else, no one else, and to invite others into that invitation that Jesus is issuing. Come to me, all you who are weary, and I will give you rest. Come to the table. Come and see that God is good. Come taste grace and forgiveness. Come see God's love for the world, the whole world, his universal love for all people. And that's something worth sticking to. I'm so grateful for these past 2 years of all the stories I could share. I could spend the rest of the time, and we would go over time, sharing all the stories of people who have found abiding in Jesus, who have rediscovered their spiritual lives and giving themselves to a small group, or giving themselves to companionship, or giving themselves to some sort of service because they knew that it could be their steady anchor in their life that they were looking for. We could be that for so many other people in our city. We could be that for our neighbors. We could be that for people who are searching for a place where they're feeling not very sure-footed. They're feeling uncomfortable. They're not feeling cared for or loved or seen even. And if we abide in Jesus, we'll bear the fruit of love and compassion and kindness for that person. Thanks be to God for that opportunity. Thanks be to God for the place we've already seen that in the past. And thanks be to God for the ways he'll faithfully deliver that fruit in the future. Amen. Let us pray. God, we know we can abide in you because you abide with us. You've stuck yourself to us. You've committed yourself to us. You've put yourself on the line for us. Remind us and reassure us of your goodness, that we can stick ourselves to it. We can commit ourselves to it. We can invite others to it. Thank you for this community that's learning to be a place that abides in you, learning to be a place that finds your steady presence as an anchor and one that we can share. Thank you for this table we're about to come to, that no matter what happens in the world around us or in our own circumstances of our own lives, it's here for us as you are here for us. We thank you, and we ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.